agonya win kam lok ba ke bot no se
Olego be lo ba won lo ba wot lo ba trimelen un person a tek wan un ba chen ate pot teki molo inyim la chwech mu chwe yene per a bit kinu amede ko kinu minu pon minu pat minu ta twin ne wido ne lo ba chwa me ti pen pi kere matengom mamero odo chike tian pa me lo kwa pol minu poch pi kondi mo binu botu weng ma petro lo nyu wo jere con mo le mao well unu minu Alfred utote uchala yotia lecho bene kunu ye chakne pitwe mara mate kaden tu ogema korana be no kunu chele kama do gendo daktari unene komado no atwele ki chang ki pajo ki konya chia bino bedo nge doi tuo mai luone ania matiete pinya wena yela ko bere kut chi guma be ngat ma te nge mano point ta ma janas ma ba tunga manye Moses ki choina bin uberu kwa ka chunyu tu achal tu te wa ne gine mete ne me yang ite me gimu chi be palba ya karma ya dwe ma bichel ari otiat bine de jo ngwen chi karma dong dakta mete an ka chabit kamo chok gulu anong kero abin chia chera bede chin tatina inu senyero bir ma be wang bo chang ne dwa chen me dwe ne July wadok de cho data ngia demo examination anana wang bo te a chang ma be chu ye ne mer aduk chen amede ki no chang wana te wa ka ano berki nge mo ne karma te yang no ne komado mo na chero veo koma me bere ko Libera otiat po bere chut bel manwang maena me pot bol ba kon be to kon be Kitgum no komate ke do teme ko wo ma be kala chan ma do ne wang bu te ma be enda ta wa chi chang ki ye del come ye ma wuji te ma la twal dwe de me twal mo chi da komate ka la ma na wuji dong wo ma be ken mo no bi la ko to ma chine America te wa tong pe kwat mai ko ma be ma do mi ru pot a po le ba ne u kere chunyu rutina ile kwaya mai ti Uganda mai ti lo nam mi kon well chulo tiat ma wele pe yot Okema tenu ko Carmile radio utuma be en wada adoke wele be peberio ke chole be pete banamo de cho chi abe dok review ne do dek me do ma bor August mana alegro mane umi kero boto uchu como kitu uchu karma chone ana poe poe meta.
This is the full life history of the late Pastor Celestino Bernard Makwanya Okello. Pastor Mzee C.B.M Okello was born on the 12th of February 1936 to Bernard Lukwe and Irina Labak Lukwe in Kitgum. Irina, of course, is the local rendering of Irene. Lukwe, the father of Mzee, or Pastor C.B.M Okello, was the son of Rorowero Lukwe, the chief of Okol, from Okol Lulim clan, who was the son of Keo, who was the son of Rorowera, who was the son of Rorolan, the son of Rorodoy, and the son of Lord Loliga. Fondly referred to as Baba, or father, in many different languages, Mzee accepted Jesus Christ as his personal savior in 1992 and walked trusting in Jesus until the Lord took Baba to him on the 21st of January this year, 2022. Here are some highlights of his educational background and professional training, starting from around 1944, when he was approximately 8 years old. P1 to P6 he was at Kitgum Boys Primary School. Then after that, he went to St. Joseph's Junior Secondary School in Naibigulu between the years of 1950 to 1951, after which he went to St. Aloysius College, Napaya, in what is currently Nebo District, in 1952. He was unable to finish his secondary school education in Napaya, but continued with studying in 1953, where he did plumbing and water supply technology from 1953 to 1956. It was there after that he began professional work as a water engineering technician. Later, when he was much older, in 2004, at the age of 58, he went to Lake Victoria Christian Center in the International School of Evangelism and Rural Development near Sagala, in Sagala near Entebbe, for a diploma in Christian ministries. This course was from 2004 all the way to 2005. Some other aspects of training he got included the following: water supply apprenticeship courses in mechanical engineering crafts, water engineering practice, welding, brazing and forging, 1954 to 1955. Trade tests grade 3 under the auspices of Ministry of Labor, 1955 to 1956. Trade tests grade 2 still under the auspices of Ministry of Labor, 1957 to 1959. After which he did a course that dealt with managing urban and rural water proficiency. Employment or work life. The late Mzee Pastor Celestino Bernard Okello, popularly known as C.B.M Okello, worked in different capacities up to the point of being promoted into glory on the 24th of January 2022. His work life began in 1955. He worked as a trade-tested artisan at Gaba pumping station in Kampala from 1955 to 56, after which he continued in Gulu Public Works Department, working as a foreman in charge of laying mains in Gulu just before independence, 1957 to 1959. In 1959, due to his excellent work methods, he got an opportunity to join the then Kampala and District Water Board, working as an artisan. Later that year, he became a technician trainee in all technical sectors of Kampala and District Water Board. This from 1962 to 1964, he was the overseer mains maintenance section of the Kampala and District Water Board. Between 1964 and 1970, he was ward inspector in Kampala and District Water Board. And then between 1970 and 77, Kampala and District Water Board had transformed into the National Water and Sewerage Corporation. And between those years, 1970 to 77, he worked as a ward inspector. In 1977, he and his family fled the country into South Sudan. By that time it was one country, Sudan, where he joined Norwegian Church Aid and worked as a foreman in the water project. Continuing work when he was in exile in Sudan, he worked as an extension training officer between 1978 and 79. In 79, when Idi Amin was overthrown by the forces that were supported by the Tanzanian People's Defense Forces, Mzee Celestino Bernard Okello returned to his country, Uganda, and rejoined the National Water and Sewerage Corporation, where he worked as ward inspector between 1980 to 82, and he was ward inspector in 3 different wards, Ward A, B, and C. He was promoted in 1982 to Superintendent of Works Distribution Section, where he worked at that level between 1982 to 83, after which in 1983 was promoted to the highest level for a technician engineer, and that position was Senior Superintendent of Works in charge of distribution in the whole of Kampala City. He worked in that position between 1983 and 86, voluntarily retiring from National Water and Sewerage Corporation on the 31st of January 1986. After retiring in 1986, he continued working in various companies he had started with friends, and these companies he had started while he was still with National Water and Sewerage Corporation. He was Managing Director of Hydrotechnical Services between 1984 and 89, and then between 1989 and 2011, he was the Managing Director of Makonyaro Technical Enterprises Limited. In 2007, after completing his training at the Victoria Christian Center, where he had done his course in Christian ministry, he was retained as a lecturer, and he lectured at Victoria Christian Center in Sagala near Entebbe between the years 2007 and 2010, after which he joined Lifeline Ministries as a pastor, working mainly as a pastor in charge of training. This was between 2008 to 2013 at the headquarters in Kampala. In 2013, he moved from Kampala to Kitgum and continued working as a pastor in Lifeline Ministries in charge of Kitgum. And he retired in 2016 after the death of his beloved wife, Mrs. Victoria Acholi Okello, in 2015. So in 2016, after consulting with his family, he retired from Lifeline Ministries to his home village of Okol.
Sing hallelujah, my Jesus is alive forever. Sing hallelujah, sing hallelujah, my Jesus is alive.
In Okol, established the Oasis Chapel. Oasis Chapel was established in the village in 2016 after Mzee C.B.M Okello retired to the village, and he was the pastor of Oasis Chapel under Springs of Healing, the presiding bishop being Bishop David Otto.
Anywhere around here, probably near there, but the Lawa Yesu, one,
Amen.
so you want like sit down and begin. I know more time. That's over among what Bishop, mother, daughter, really better yet. I no more. The grandmother, young upon no man, I've been here for being kind. You know, on what an accompaniment on Bishop Otto, David. Mama, the beautiful type, and myself, pastor, near brother. Young can be kind.
He served in this capacity with help from some of his children up to the time he was promoted to glory on the 24th of January 2022. Now I'd like to say something about his leadership and social life. Pastor C.B.M Okello Baba had many capacities in which he interacted with the communities he served. Some of these capacities had to do with his work. Some of these capacities had to do with where he lived, and some of them had to do with where he came from. And I'm going to highlight a few of those that are related to where he came from, and where he worked, and where he lived. Starting from 1968. Between 1968 and 1970, Mzee was the chairman of Naguru Estate's Social Affairs Management Committee. Between 1961 and 1970, he was the branch secretary of Uganda Public Employers Union, the Kampala District Water Board branch. Between 1961 and 68, he was Honorable Secretary of Naguru Estates Tenants Association. Between 1966 and 69, he was the Treasurer General of Uganda Employees Public Union. Between 1977 and 79, when he was in exile, he was Honorable Secretary of Uganda Refugees Welfare Association in South Sudan. In South Sudan, by that time it was still Sudan. And then, when he returned to Uganda, between 1988 and 1992, he was the RC2 Secretary for Education and Mass Mobilization for Naguru 2 Parish. Finally, one of his most important roles, socially and as a leader, was his work as the chairman of Muchwini community in Kampala, Jinja and Entebbe, or ABOP as it was known then. ABOP, A-B-O-P-P, standing for Akarabura, Okol, Pubej, and Pachua. Something that he diligently carried out as a leader, to the point that the members of the association struggled to let him free from that role. But at the time he was leaving, after serving them for close to 18 years, he had so many engagements which were taking him outside Kampala, Jinja and Entebbe. Socially, Mzee was a man of the people. He played many roles as a leader and was a sought-after individual. That is a summary of Mzee's 85, close to 86 years of life on earth. Thank you. I would just like to say that even though I expected that Mzee would go one of these days, I have really struggled to deal with that. But in a way, I'm comforted because I know where it's gone. I'd like to talk a little bit about my father Mzee, Pastor Celestino Bernard Makonya Okello, my beloved father. Baba was a super dad. He had his, of course he had his flaws like everyone else, but he was a super dad. And you couldn't fault him on that. It is a pity that sometimes when you fall sick, some aspects of your qualities are wane or they become weakened in one way or the other. But I would like to share some 12 points. 12 areas really I saw in Mzee. Number one, Mzee was a principled person. He was principled. He believed, if he believed that something was right, for you to convince him out of that would be very difficult. He believed in principles. He believed that you had to tell the truth. You didn't have to be a liar. You had to keep your word. Those are some of the things. He was principled. He believed in principles. And some of these principles he saw in his work, and some of these principles he saw when he was interacting with people. Some of the principles he learned in school and so on. There are some of the principles he learned even through culture and so on. There are certain things he believed in. He believed in the fact that a principled person had to be a good person. Then the other thing also, which is the second thing I would really like to say about my dad, Baba was a person of integrity. He believed that it was important to be honest. And we watched our parents, both my dad and my mom, from the time we were little. And we believed that integrity was very important. Part of that meant that we would not lie, we would not steal. There are certain things, of course, we did as boys. Sometimes we would fight and all those kinds of things. But like those two things were aspects of integrity we learned from our parents. When we were little, for example, they could leave money on the table or on top of the fridge or a cupboard or something that sort, and they'll find that money. Or when we would walk out and you'll find something which did not belong to you and it was something that was valuable, we'll come home and we'll say, Baba, no, the money. And we'll say, okay, make it come in. And that aspect of integrity went with us. I'm not saying we did not lie or what, and so on. Okay, maybe sometimes we lie. But the truth of the matter was that you would not lie. If you lied, it would be seen in your face. And that came from knowing him. Mzee believed in work. He was a worker. He worked hard, and his work was seen mainly in what he wrote and what he did. Along the way, as we were growing up, we would see him work. Going to office, for example, we would go and get him working. But we experienced his work life much more after he retired from National Water. And at that time, we would see him chiseling through the walls, and we would do that with him. He believed in work. Another aspect, which is the fourth one, was he was a worshiper of the Most High. Mzee, along the way, learned to worship the Most High. He learned religiously at first, but eventually he learned to really worship the Most High. He loved to sing. One of the songs he loved to sing very much was Hallelujah. Hallelujah, being born, yes. That's a song he loved. Mzee was a worshiper of the Most High. And fifthly, Mzee was meticulous and orderly in record keeping. He was good at record keeping. One of the things that has helped us reconstruct or construct his life history has come from his record keeping. He would keep record about almost anything or everything. There are people who remember him asking them to sign for small things. You get something from him, he say, you sign here. I get you card. And I tell you, that was something that always was there with Mzee. Number 6, Mzee was a family man. And we felt family around him. And it was even much better when Mommy was around. He was a good family man. He always ensured that we felt as family. But number 7 was hospitality. Mzee was a person of hospitality. Especially when Mommy was around him and he was a person of means. He would be hospitable, and we watched that over and over again. When we were young, we would sometimes have so many people living together with us. Sometimes in the house would be 15, 20 people, and it was normal. And we did not just witness it for 1 or 2 days, but for a very long time. And that hospitality continued to the extent that so many people were touched by their hands and by their generosity and hospitality. Then Mzee also had a brilliant mind. He was someone who had a mind that had a certain intellectual capacity, a way of reflecting through things and so on. And it showed when actually he went to Bible college in Sagala. Among people who were young enough to be his own sons or even grandsons and daughters. When eventually their results came out, thinking that they were studying with an old man, he beat them all, to the point where actually he was retained in Sagala as a lecturer, and that happens to be part of his work-life history. And then Mzee had a fatherly heart. Sometimes you will not see it because he would flare, would easily sometimes get upset, especially when he was sick, he was unwell. He wasn't used to being sick. So I think sickness sometimes had a toll on him. But he had a fatherly heart. He would always want to advise someone as a father. He would like to be someone's father. And even though he was strict and he was a disciplinarian, he had a father's heart, which was something that was very good. And it raised so many of us. So many of our friends knew that there was Baba. Other people's parents were maybe daddy, maybe whatever, but there was Baba, and that was our dad, Mzee C.B.M Okello. And then the 10th thing I saw in Mzee was the fact that he trusted authorities in various fields. He believed that when you were an authority in a particular field, he will trust you, he will consult you, you become a counselor to him, or become an advisor to him, or become an important reference point. When we were much younger, we remember how whenever we would think of something legal, we would think of our late uncle, Ubolo. Then when he would think about something else, he'd go in that. He believed that when someone was an authority in a particular field, you have to consult that person. If it was a message that came to him from a medical person and it was on health, then he would trust that. He believed and trusted in authorities in particular fields. And that helped us actually relate with him, because he trusted in authorities. Then Mzee believed in justice. He believed that we had to be just, and it was unfair for the unjust to go scot-free. He believed that people had to be just in how they handled things. Of course, he wasn't perfect in that, but when you told him and you highlighted to him that this was something just, and he reflected on it, then he said, yes, it is right to do it. Finally, the 12th issue, the 12th thing I remember about Mzee was his readiness for heaven. Mzee was ready for heaven. Sometime in 2021, he was visited by ministers of the gospel, including our Bishop David Otto, the Bishop presiding over Oasis Chapel. And the moment they entered, they greeted him. He was very excited, and they prayed and sang and so on. And of course, his favorite song is always Hallelujah, Binbot Yesu. And he told them, I'm ready for heaven. I'm ready to go to heaven. Even now, I'm ready to go. And I would like to say that we saw his readiness for heaven in how he desired to go. But we told him that he needed to go well, he needed to go prepared, and he needed to go at a time when we would be able to give him a befitting send-off. I believe that even though we'll miss him greatly, we will miss him dearly, he was ready for heaven. He understood what it took to go to heaven. And there are very many times he talked about it. And I just want to thank God for these things I've said about Mzee. Once again, I would like to say that Mzee was a super dad. It has been a privilege to have him as our own father. In his passing, we were comforted, especially after we lost our mom in 2015. We are comforted knowing that Mzee went ready to go to heaven. He prepared our hearts for his going. We even discussed his going, which sounded strange, but we say, Mzee, when your time comes, we want you to go well. And that is one of the things that helps us as believers in Jesus Christ, that you do not fear death. Mzee did not fear death, and probably living with him and seeing him go through this helped us also to develop more that expectation that one day each one of us has to leave earth. And I would like to conclude as follows. Mzee had a few things he desired. And he had his wishes. And by God's grace, we will fulfill his last wishes. The wishes he told us. Maybe there are certain wishes he never really shared with us. But the main ones are three. Number one, Mzee desired that we would have our own local church at home. Oasis Chapel, which started in his own house, was to grow. One of the structures at home would host that church once it had become available and big enough. And then ultimately we will put up a structure, a church within our compound, which would host the community. A church building. Number two, Baba wanted us to remain united in one as his children. Not only the children, his children, but his grandchildren and those who come after them. And by God's grace again, we hope we will remain one, will honor that wish that he had. Then the final wish, which is probably the most important one, was he desired that we would all be prepared for the next life. We should be ready for eternal life. We should be ready to leave this earth, because the real life comes hereafter. I just want to thank you for honoring Mzee's memory by coming to give him a send-off that is befitting someone who was a man of the people and loved the Lord, irrespective of his shortcomings that may have been witnessed here and there. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon in some places, depending on where you are. My name is Jude Ogik. I am a son of the late Pastor Celestino Bernard Makwonyero Okello, who used to shorten his name as C.B.M Okello. I'm a last-born child of to him and the late Mrs. Victoria Okello. My father, Mr. C.B.M Okello, passed away on the 24th of January this year. Mr. C.B.M Okello, or Pastor C.B.M Okello, I knew him in several capacities. To me, obviously, was a father, and as a father, he treated me with love. I knew him was tough love when it needed to be, and he was principled, and he was loving, and he demonstrated what he wanted to do by his own life. He lived what he wanted to do. So what he preached, he did. That's as a father. I knew him as a friend. When I grew up, he started calling me Larema in Acholi, which means my friend. To me, I took that to heart as a friend. And I would come back from school, even when in P6, he would want to carry me on his lap when I come back from school. I just had to start moving away forcefully from the love and the kind of love was showing me by even carrying when I was coming from school. Because, funnily, there was a story I heard about himself. He was also a last born like me, and he was spoilt. He would come back from school, and okay, there are certain details I'll not give because he might seek leave from heaven to come and discipline me now. So let me leave that one. But he was the last born of last borns, where he was really given his way in everything he was doing. Now I knew him as a friend. Even as we grew older, we were calling ourselves my friend, my friend. Now towards his last days, I would call him Acholi, a fellow last born like me. Acholi, I'm the only child who used to call him by his name, and I would call him fondly Acholi, short of Celestino. And actually, also, we don't have a C. You say C is like CH. So I would say Chele. So me, I would say Acholi, and he would call me Ajuda instead of Jude. He says Ajuda. So we would really have banter with him and enjoy. When we would meet, I would say Acholi. He says Ajuda. Acholi, Ajuda. Then there was the bit where we had a song which I used to sing when he's happy. They say, "One kwa kila rema, one kwa kila water, one talk kila rema." So we would sing that, we would dance, we would really have fun together. So when I met him, he lit up, and we really enjoyed ourselves. So calling him by name was a risky venture for many people. No one did of the children. I was the only one who did. I also knew him as a philanthropist, somebody who looked after people. When we were in Kampala during when the insurgency was raging in the north, we were living in Kampala. People would come literally from Kitgum asking, "Where are you going?" "I'm going to the home of Celestino Okello in Naguru." Any day we would have 40, 50 people, and we, the children, were just mixed up in the whole crowd. Food would be cooked 2 or 3 times. We just mixed up in the whole group, and we would have to look for us by maybe our looks to know who the child of the home is. We had so many people, and that's something I picked from him. Also, another thing I knew about him was a leader. He was a last born, but was a leader, not tall or big in stature. He was small in size, but character. He was a leader in many capacities. Even in Muchwini Development Association of today, in Kampala, was called ABOP, and he was the founding chairman. He gathered all the people of Muchweni, which was a full sub-county, and they were gathered, and he really galvanized them during the war when nobody had leadership. And that led the people of Muchweni for a long time in Kampala. Now, today, we have Muchweni Development Association, which is a metamorphosis or an offshoot of what really had been in Kampala. And Mzee Awich Olel and the former Joseph 5 Jackson Omona are leading it, and this is we are also part of it. But it's something which I saw from him, loving his people and offering leadership. Then I saw in him this royalty, the love for his royalty, his royalty roots. At every occasion, any instigation, any opportunity he would talk about his royalty, he would give you up to 7 generations. His father's name, his grandfather's name, great-grandfather's name, great-grandfather's name, 7 generations. And it was really beautiful. Now he would write it, he would talk about it, what our clan is, what our people are, the royalty we are, and he never shied away at any given occasion, which is something which you are proud of. It has rubbed on us. One of my sons is called Linden. My son is called Linden Prince Ogik. The prince, when he's asked in school, says, I'm royalty. My nephew, Richard's son, the late Richard's son, is called Kingsley. So we are moving along. We know our roots, what they call blue blood. That is something which I took from him. From him also, I saw a man who really loved the culture, the Acholi culture. He would want to eat Acholi food, he would want to speak in Acholi. When I was growing up in Kampala, it stopped us from speaking Luganda, for instance. So until we learned English. So if we started learning Luganda, it would mess up with our intonation of English, and so we first did not learn Luganda or Swahili or any other thing. We just learned our English, and then later on, and Acholi, of course. Actually, and English, those were our first languages. And even if we were born, I was born in Kampala in the 70s, grew up in Kampala, just came to Kitgum to work in 1987. In 2007, I mean, 2007. But then all that I knew, my actually is flawless. It goes on. I can speak with elders, I can speak with any person, thanks to Mzee. And even my English is based on what his insistence that you don't have to mix yourself up. So that is the Mzee I know. Then the man of God. This is a man who was initially not a pastor, not even born again. We were all Catholics when we were young, and he was even in Catholic faith. He went up to Rome, but his faith changed along the way. And then not only that, in fact, we led him to Christ. We were the first to get born again, and he also, together with Mommy, they want to throw us out of home because of our faith. Then somebody convinced them not to. Then he got born again. Then he went to Bible school. And he became a pastor. I started pastoring in Lifeline Church. Then he came in Kitgum, and later on retired, formed Oasis Chapel in Kitgum, in Okol, which is an affiliate of Springs of Healing Center under Bishop Otto Idifa. So that is the man I knew, and a man of humor. We would laugh to tears together. We would laugh, crack jokes. And there was one joke which I will not stop, will not end this interview or this conversation without mentioning. One time they had a disagreement with Mommy. At that time, they were not yet, I think they were not yet born again, and they were taking wine and stuff. So they started disagreeing. So Mzee told the late Daddy told Mommy that when we go to heaven, you will still be my wife. Mommy said, no, you will. Each one will be on their own. Each one will be on their own. There's no marriage there. Mzee like, no, you'll be my wife. Mommy would have none of it, and we were laughing our heads off as children. We were just looking at them and laughing. I believe on the 24th that matter was settled. I think when he showed up in heaven, they could have showed him his own mansion somewhere else and mommy somewhere else, and they know each other. Or we don't know what happens in heaven, but that question is sorted. So that really gives me a chuckle when I remember it. It gives me a good laugh. So that is the Mzee I had, and then the discipline he put in us. I will not end by not saying, by mentioning. One time I was going to school and he gave me pocket money. That was in early 90s, late 80s, early 90s. I was going to boarding school. He really gave me, I think, 20,000 shillings or something as pocket money. So he forgot because we were many going to school, different boarding schools. So he wanted to give me money afterwards. Then I said, but Daddy, you've already given me this money. He says, for being honest, keep that money. He added me another 20,000. He says, that is the value of being honest. That was ingrained in my system. That this is not just being paid to be honest, but it has touched, we used to call him Baba, it has touched him, and he has rewarded me this way. I was very blessed and I was happy. So there's some, if I speak about Mzee, I will talk the whole day. But I want to thank my wife, Vicky. Before I even thank her, there's something similar with Mzee. Mzee was the last born to his parents and the last born to my parents. Mzee married Mommy, who was the firstborn in their family. I married my wife, who was the firstborn, who is the firstborn in our family. My mom was called Victoria, my wife was called Vicky. So there's some similarity that the firstborn Vicky, there's firstborn Vicky, lastborn here, lastborn here. In the height we are almost height mates, and I would just maybe his height, and really there was something really similar between the two of us, and he called me friend, and he loved it that we as lawyers call ourselves learned friends, because that to him shows the friendship it should be. And I thank God for his final days. As I end, I thank God for his final days of departure. And as I go to thank him over that, I want to thank all our wives. I thank Vicky for being in hospital the times she was, and being prayerful, being around him. I thank Emily, that's Emily Okema. I thank Jane Opio. I thank Dorothy Okello. I thank Agnes Opera. I thank Grace Lomo. And I thank all my sisters who were with Mzee, all the grandchildren. I can't mention you all, but thank you so much. Thank you so much. Mzee, before he left, he was prepared. I'm told, he told the maid that, I've had peace with all my children, and even if I disagree with them, we are okay. And he had a preparation of living. Those who were around him knew the times. And in December, on the 21st, when I went, I last saw him, because I was not here over Christmas. I went with my wife Vicky, and I told us to kneel down. He prayed over us and spoke so many things that I'm watching to see. I may not be able to say them all here. He prayed over Vicky, prayed over me, and spoke things, and cried. Before he could finish his prayer, he cried a lot, and saying he loved us. And to me, that was a farewell. And there's also something that his tears was now near towards the end of his life. When he gets happy, he would just get into tears. He was really heaven bound. He was really crossing over. So, Jesus, I thank you for the gift of my father, Celestino, Pastor. I thank you for giving him to us for 85 years and only 3 weeks to 86. I really thank you. Thank you for the 12th of February 1936 that he was born. And thank you for Mommy, whom they have reunited together with. Thank you for my parents. Now that they have gone to rest, we will join them. I thank you, Jesus. I thank you, Lord. Now, may you help us to keep that legacy. Mzee was a very appreciative person. He would really appreciate when you give him something. Over the years, he took care of us, taking us to school, paying our school fees. All of us went to school. So there was a time God touched our hearts to give him a gift of a car. And I repaired my car that I was using because I bought another one. And I took it to him. He danced. He was so happy.
Mzee wakati donkaya. Ah well.
And he blessed me, and he blessed my wife, and it was so beautiful seeing him enjoy it. Towards the end of his life, he one time told me something which was very interesting. He wanted the car changed in his name. So he asked me, my friend, I said, Judah Larema, why not transfer this car in my name? I'm like, I will, and I was so busy most of the time. Then one time he said, but it seems you want me to die so to come and pick away this car. I'm like, no, I can't even think of that. Then another time he told me, you know what? If you die, they'll take away this car from me. So he had his ways of trying to get me to the corner. So last December, thankfully, for the first time I got a tin for him, tax identification number. I got him an email. I transferred the car to his name and gave him the logbook, printed it for him, and that blew him away, and he was so happy. And also about gifts, it's not about showing off or anything. I remember my story of going to law school. When I reached S6, Mzee and Mommy were in Kitgum, and Mommy had asthma, and they used to walk from Mommy's village where they had gone because of the insurgency. That was about 36 miles from Ngomoromo to town. So I was told that they would walk, and sometimes Mommy almost lost her life. Yeah, when I was told by my brother Charles, in those days communication was not there and the road was so bad. So I was told that Mommy almost lost her life because of asthmatic attack. So I saved some little money in vacation. I bought a bicycle, and Charles brought it to Mzee to help the situation, their movement from Ngomoromo to Ngomoromo is in Lamour, in Lamour district. So to ease their movement, and I'm told the bicycle saved Mommy's life a few times, and it was very helpful to them. So I told God, I was in Essex back, I said, in place of what I have given, please help me to become a lawyer. And indeed, when Mzee came, he told me, he came to Kampala and he was crying tears. So I said, I want to bless you. What do you want to be? He said, I want to be a lawyer. And indeed, he blessed me. The next I knew, I was doing law. And that's what I am today. That's the power of giving and the power of blessing. So I thank God for that. So to me, I enjoyed my parents who lived with me in Kitgum, and I never had enough of them. I would still ask for more if it were my way. But I know Mzee always wanted to go. So we released him, and we thank God that he is in a better place, and we'll be there. Again, I thank you.
Kamero mi upocho twal kideo bodluba e niano matine ne manwa tia luoko uonwa Pastor C.B.M Okello ma ubedo larema ubedo umero ubedo latij lawora idok tich aruot amiro mi upoch pe yweyo madong en uworo wan ladit Mzee wat wo bedo matek wiya po kar mokwoma abina no en isagala the African Resource Center ma wachere graduation meka megi no te wateki lutela maroma dek magen be gubedo kuno ene kar mokwoma chako rwate ke ladi Celestina inge rwate wa enune ma nywago lok wat wo woro matutut niyo wai kar be me ordination magitia team ordination ne in ordination services mapapa trainings mo bedo katimo kidon kar mado dugu don pajo botwa Kitgum kan ma eno bedo ka kwat a lifeline wan wabedo ka chiel kar mado retiring me dok pajo obedo wan Mzee ka chiel ma wadwa ke Mzee kar gin ma lok ma maro po matek to twal ka warwate wani my bishop ka luone my father wani yes I'm your father but you are my bishop in turn I'm a son to you so jokes enune kawabuka kano watia nywako ne uwero umio watu wan ke Mzee beru matek katika tutwale dong mamiro tirne ikarma aremu chake Mzee wore peki mapapat ya reme nune wiya po karachiel ma pero bedi piere wa tiene no dong wotu bedu tek kidong ma nido chako bino ne to any suspecting cancer ti Mzee bino bora wane my bishop an pamira denchan long me yat kono gi mia kaluba dong paucha better let me rest eno yuero mogo tamero che wani no Mzee pekumeno pege timu kumeno anywako kede lo achoko chwinye chika dong chako dong ye lo me treatment yene obedo anywako kachiel Luka ma uchoyo bukpa Luka kiluti palo kweno obedo Dr. Luka karma Ezekiel ubedo kia rem che la nebe ichaya ubino bora wani yub oti yene vito che gina choya tiro bot wani Ezekiel ukok bo luba ingeye luba umedo nino ne ka ichaya la nebe wane che kwan remu duru ikete iwang red enune ka waneno mod ichaya po bedo daktar bedo la nebi endo mio lo mekelo chao wero watwa ke la ditu bedo te gina chiel mokene mabene karma la didong remdo chako dio word ma woro me lime lega ma lego ka chiel jima papat ke nywako chim choko chwiny ni wai karma endo ngutuge pledging allegiance submission me bedo itetela na gin ma miro wore ye Mzee ka dano magiluoni is religiously dedicated in logme tithing na is ngat petie ngat mo ma no so obedient jalo Mzee kere wa atiel ma pa kat el pierio no miru chwal el vario kona di just on the dot and nieno mo atiel borawa Mzee Gineni, there is a fellowship Matie Gankany Oasis fellowship, and we need to submit. Mzee Wanino, you are my bishop. Che watwa enune peo me de doc e due me abiero makamukaro e car me lockdown. Mada nieno pier ngwen we ario. Condition ne po bedo mayor. Mzee no dong lego makom lega hilo ba remido romero ana gego achi mo cher bod Mzee wa lego kachel wa nywa lo palo ba chi gina chel ma ter bod Mzee ma Basil woda no tie ke tabo Moses ana penyo Mzee to pege gao kai to ichawa ene ikara ene ngeni chik wani dano piario kekeni ubedi William iniang wani eno niang kia wani dano machalo in madit me awara kid ene tamni dano piario kekeni ubedi liele chino pege luoke kideyo chi wani dong my bishop what should I do kia wani dong wadon you promise ne kara ene me lockdown ene tomo mabini kuoni pe endo kage kwanyo lockdown pe partial lockdown bagi kwanyo totally ke kwanyo ko chi waye ka chiel kara enune ini dok pajo chi Mzee uye mago chia wa ne latina ana ye and my bishop inge mapuri patiero it was like a covenant condition ma Mzee wa ne okay anbe tiki mega kaniro enune uromo alegi ne pedore legi medwaka mi uchia Mzee magochia chiwa in latina ye my bishop I want you to agree I agreed on your terms you should agree on my terms ingedong aling then I accepted now gin madong about you exactly Monday when announcement gitimucha bichiel ne there is now no partial lockdown lockdown dong has become history Chawa Bichiel, Chawa Boro, the difference of 2 hours, my great friend went to be with the Lord. So I really want to thank him. Ginmal, I learned from him, he is a principled man. Once he has spoken, that is it. Number 2, he is so faithful. And then the third one is a fatherhood spirit, Matie Kwane, which I learned. Kidong umia bene areas as a father umia areas maduong menani okay. As a father, what should I do for my next generation? Anapoyo, Bami Ugum.
I'm awakened.
Eyo.
And pardon the open.
Eyo.
And I said a quarrel. Upon you made a way.
Eyo.
They tell me jump.
Eyo.
Water.
Eyo.
Man, love for the bomb thing.
Eyo.
And a bit in law.
Eyo.
And I go, about what one.
Eyo.
Get my years of year. One and my daughter, all over the bed
Eyo.
was this up on la time.
Eyo.
Mommy, who very shallow, bus park.
Eyo.
Warming on me with that bus park.
Eyo.
Walk coming, what I'll get a pen, building a hand.
Eyo.
My one day, there will be a yoga chair.
Eyo.
Couple you will be woman in. Taking a marathon.
Eyo.
The bomb, a boy. And a boy.
Eyo.